beginning of the Civil War, a majority of Union soldiers only enlisted to save the Union. Now, of course, there were certain exceptions to this, such as Ulysses S. Grant. Grant said, "As soon as slavery fired upon the flag, it was felt, we all felt, even those who did not object the slaves, that slavery must be destroyed. We felt that it was a stain to the Union that men should be bought and sold like cattle." Within the first year of the war, Union soldiers began to see the war the same as Grant. As they marched to the South, they finally encountered slavery for the first time. Now, many of these men came from states that had already outlawed slavery, so this experience was an awakening for them. One experience from a Sergeant Cyrus Boyd of Iowa was whenever he was encountering a black little girl being sold at an auction block. He said, quote, "By God, I'll fight till hell freezes over, then I'll cut the ice and fight on." Another change of heart came from an enlisted man from Wisconsin. He said, quote, "The rebellion is abolitionizing the whole army. Time spent in the South has forced Union troops to face the sum of all evils and cause of the war. You have no idea of the changes that have taken place in the minds of the soldiers in the last 2 months. Men of all parties seem unanimous in the belief that to permanently establish the Union is to first wipe out the institution of slavery." Many other accounts from diaries and interviews of Union soldiers confirm this change of heart. Also, we must look to the songs that they marched to. There were songs that were created that were enthusiastically for ending slavery. One song the Union soldiers would march to was the Union version of Dixie. It said, "Where cotton's king and men are chattels, Union boys will win the battles." Another song, the most famous of them all, and even famous today, was the song "The Battle Hymn of the Republic." The song was written by Julia Ward Howe in 1861. It said, "As he died to make men holy, let us die to make men free." As the war progressed into 1862, the idea of emancipation became increasingly popular. Now, a General Butler would take steps to allow emancipation. What he did was to allow runaway slaves to be considered as contraband, so they could be able to be freed and also help Union soldiers in building forts and such. Also, it was an effort to encourage slaves to leave their Confederate masters so they wouldn't be able to help build Confederate forts. Now, it wasn't until 1863, whenever the Union cause would be officially for ending slavery. On January 1st, 1863, Abraham Lincoln officially signed the Emancipation Proclamation. Many Northern soldiers were in favor of the proclamation. However, not all soldiers were for it. Many soldiers feared emancipation because it would give equality to blacks. By 1864, the presidential election between Abraham Lincoln and George McClellan would take place. The Union Army had to choose whether to vote for Lincoln, who would continue the war and end slavery, or vote for George McClellan, who wanted to make peace with the South and leave slavery alone. By the end of the election, the Union Army overwhelmingly voted for Lincoln. A mere 70% of the Army voted to continue the war and to end slavery in the United States. The war ended in 1865, and Union soldiers returned home, continuing their careers and lives. Many of them did not continue to fight for civil rights for African Americans, but nevertheless, The sacrifice they made ended slavery and made it possible to pass the 14th and 15th Amendments to give civil rights to freed slaves.